Aspity, it would appear you've been very naughty to me.
He who distrusts himself is better off silent.
Yeah, but I distrust you is the thing. I'd trace your step with my hands, Oinon. Look at me in the eye, Aspity. Did you hand over my father's inheritance to me in full, every bit and every part of it? No, I didn't, I confess. Explain yourself. I've fallen in love with you, Oinon. I care too much. I so desperately want you to live. You were brought up away from here. You've forgotten our rights and customs. You were in need of a friend here, a mentor. It was easier for me to keep your belongings for the time being, easier than trying to explain why they are dangerous to keep and even more dangerous to use. Fallen in love. Like a slave falls in love with their master, like a thing falls in love for its owner. It is dog's affection. I know it's forbidden for an Odong to couple with a woman from the kin. I am simply devoted to you, Oinon. So it wasn't you the local crones were talking about. Absolutely. It's a bone. A bos primigenius's horn. Here, it confirms that you are the eldest of the Burks, that you know the right and preserve the art of a copios taglur. I'm just guessing every word now. A copious taglur? The Burks are a copious taglur. You know the lines, you know how to cut a body open. The right is your right. There are but a few families of the kind left. I'm so used to the word kin that it felt like a typo, but it's not. I had no right to make this choice for you. Tell me about the other families. Few families still hold the right to carry out the right in this part of the steppe. The Manjazines, the Besetches, the Beshetches, the Burks, the Oyuns, and the Kriuks. The last of the Magazines died. He was basically killed by Black Nina. The Besetches used to know the lions almost as well as the Manjazines, but they've been brought to naught by Twirine. Were they the best? Yes. Well, each family had its own line of work, and each was rather brilliant when handling their line. The Burks, for example, have always been talented healers. The Magazines were the most ruthless and indecisive. The Besetches were the greatest in number. The Oyuns and the Kiruks have never been taken seriously. They are apprentices, not masters. So we're healers, Magazines are ruthless and decisive, Besetches are there's just a lot of them, but the Oyuns and Kiruks are lesser families. So that's why Oyun's giving me so much trouble, because he's the head of a family that normally is last in line and given the least prestige, but all the other families are dying or dead, and if he can deny me, then he gets to be on top. Give me the bone. It is rightfully yours. Take it and forgive me. I swear that I meant well. Had I not abused the situation, you'd have been dead by now. You will now be once again accused of patricide by many. The weak, old story will repeat itself. Be prepared. It'll be different now. I'll take care of it all. On my own. Will I, though? Or am I going to get just a really bad reputation now? Cool, another item to go on this screen. The thing that's always full. Bros Primigenius, a beast from legend whose lines reflect the intricacies and laws of the universe, gave this bone to one of the first Menku.
The Inquisitor proceeds with her terrible harvest. Is she pretty at least? Baby doll?
The voice actor sounded confused by that line. Is she pretty at least? Baby doll? That was weird. Where's the power of the copious tagglers come from? They know the lines, duh. It's clear as day, isn't it? They know how to open up and turn around the cryptic lines of a body, a word, the sky, the earth, and even water. That's how it used to be anyway. That's not what I'm talking about. How come the power this knowledge grants to its bearer is so great? Why is that a surprise? How can the foreman rule without troops? Why does the kin yield to him? How did the leaders of the ruling families accept it? It's the power of standing. Each party has their own domain. The power of the tagglers arose naturally to fill the corners of reality that the rulers would never understand. You people only offered the rulers the leftovers of that power. The Ogimskis haven't been holding the kin in their grasp for all that long, you know. The Odongs are stronger. What about Oyen? He is too. He's weaker. Much weaker than the alternatives. That's why he's handy for the Ogimski leeches. They're all wolves of a pack. Conspirators intent on weakening the kin. Were it not for the leeches, the kin would have long risen against Oyen. Why? Because he doesn't know the lines, that's why. How is he an Odong at all? Fetching water for your father, that's his place and nothing more. His hands are strong, he knows the right, but his will is weak. The art escapes him. When your fathers resigned, the age of knowledge was replaced with the age of burden and brute force. I've heard that before.
It's better not to ask.
Wish me luck. That always bothers me a bit in this game. Those moments where there's just so many dialogue options and you pick one of them and then the conversation is over forever. And I'm like, wait, what? What about... What? Like, I've played so many CRPGs and BioWare games and so on where you can just pick every dialogue option, you know, if they're questions. Obviously, there's decisions where you only pick one, because that's what a decision is, but it's a pretty normal standard feature in RPGs to let you pick all the different information options. But this game doesn't really go that way. In particular, it gets weird because I believe when I did the ending of the Bachelor's campaign, people even mentioned that, like, if I picked a different option, I would have gotten more information from the Changeling, and she would have actually explained herself, maybe. Because she doesn't even explain what her plan is, which is infuriating. But, like, it's not like I left anything unpicked. I literally, if I remember correctly, I said something, and then that was the end of that conversation, because, like, you get locked out of the other options, and that's, like, a whole problem to deal with. So we should be all set to go there, right? I'm getting closer to an answer. Aspedy tries to take care of me, and the foreman, he acts as if he is waiting for me to strangle him with his bare hands. I should return to him with his horn. So now he'll finally have to listen to me, right? I doubt it. I'm sure he'll come up with something else I have to do. I have to prove myself. I probably have to do some kind of rite or something to show that I am the true Buruk now that I have the horn. And he's probably going to keep blocking my progress towards the panacea over and over again as long as he can. After all, we have 3 more days of story to go. I bet he manages to fill some of those up by just being a prick. Caring more about his station than whether or not the city lives or dies, including his people, and the steppe people. How you doing, buddy? Staring at me all spooky-like? Alright, bye. There's no shortcut, right? I can't just, like, loop around this side. I think this is a dead end. It'd be really nice if I could just skip straight to him, but I don't think they give me that. I'm probably wasting my time right now. Guess we'll find out. Oh yeah, this is the entrance. Yeah. This is the entrance to the railway. Whoops. And I knew this too. I've wasted my time. So Aspedy has fallen in love with the Haruspex. But she can't, but it's a forbidden love. Because the Buruk cannot An Ojong cannot spend time and be one with a lowly steppe person. It's hard to draw the lines of who's a steppe person sometimes. Partly because the women just look like human women or regular, I don't know, townswomen, whereas all the males look odd. That's not true. There's the I just remembered the butchers. Yeah, the butchers just like regular people. Yeah, I guess it's just all over the place. These are still called steppe people, right? The really odd looking ones. I don't know. It's a mix. She thought she was protecting me. If the horn's bad for me publicly, why don't I just hide it and just bring it out during the moments I need it, like when dealing with the steppe people, and then hide it when I'm in the city where people would react poorly to it, thinking that I killed my own dad. Does that mean tomorrow I get to deal with my reputation dropping to 0 again? Because that'll be fun. Oh boy. Maybe I can follow my own advice and just go stash the horn back home when I don't need it.
She is an emissary of the law. Now is the time when ancient gods die.
Speak. I've accepted my father's inheritance in full. Speak. I see. A worthy deed. I know now that you haven't had the bone before due to ignorance, not cowardice. It is henceforth yours. What do you want to know? Speak. Are we saying stop over and over again like we're teleoperators? Where did the blood you gave me yesterday come from? It is the blood of Bos Primigenius, an image of Bos Turok, who goes by the name of an Orox. An ancient steppe bull whose lines are akin to the lines of the cosmic bull. It was left over from a sacrificial rite. But the rite didn't go the way you wanted it to. You couldn't get living blood from the beast killed the day before yesterday. That is so, but I can draw it from the earth. It is the blood that feeds Suok's body. The blood that flows through her veins underground. The blood that we have been pouring there since time immemorial, feeding Bos Turok's body to be fed by him in return. So all of these blood sacrifices have created living blood that's underground? Somewhat consistent with the creepy capillaries and veins we see on that one map of the local area, and also the fact that it's supposed to be all the body of a bull. And when I was underground, it's all red down there. It's worth noting we're not currently underground. The other area is underground, the area under the theater, but this is actually surface level. I mean, we're under the ground technically, but the ground went up, we didn't go down. You've taken this blood from below the ground? How old is it? Warmed by Suok's body, brought to life by Suok's breath, the currents of thousands upon thousands of bulls cut open lie underground. Its age should be of no concern to you. It has been the living blood of Suok from the moment it was poured into Bos Turok's vein. Where exactly is the entrance point that the blood gets poured into? I will tell you this too, here. In the abattoir, at the heart of the house of Suok lies a well that is connected to the veins feeding the earth. Can blood be extracted from there? Only by an Odong, the foreman of the abattoir, who belongs to a long tag lure and knows the right. The blood rises from down below, heeding his call, but I will not call this blood for you until we are equal. Here it comes. Why not? Because I do not want you to have it. You are unworthy of thinking about it, let alone taking it. It was not you, but Boss Vlad that I gave the blood to before, to help him, and on his orders. So how can I get this blood? Also, shit, I just sacrificed Boss Vlad, so I can't use him as a vector for getting more. By making the sacrifice and fulfilling your father's duty, by passing every trial, here it comes, completing every task and proving that you are worthy of making such a sacrifice. Not before that. Come tomorrow, we shall talk about it. I will. Oh, there's the veins. Wow. Wow. This is interesting because it probably represents the difference of the different goals that the three characters have. By the end of the campaign, they've drawn different conclusions about what the solution is, and this map seems to be reiterating that, because by now I'm pretty sure we had a big old polyhedron on the screen for the Bachelor, and that was the big focus. There was little capillary looking holes under all the houses, but just around here, and there was a big old polyhedron up here, but it was just a hill. For the Haruspex, the hill is clearly a bull, just explicitly. And also now there's these huge veins of blood all coming from the abattoir. Things have gotten really weird now. Oh, that's actually not done yet. Okay. I think this might have updated. Yeah. So I could be wrong, but I think the Bachelor's mission might have been the same the entire game. But we seem to update it periodically here, because the Haruspex is learning new entrances into its entire mission, basically. Who will the sought one be? Whom are we going to cure? Ever since I was a child, I knew that sacrifice is the only way to proceed. This has nothing to do with superstition, or with the prophecies of the mistresses. This is just a fact. A sacrifice will have to be made. This sacrifice is what enables the Udurg to live. This has nothing to do with the ritual, but is rather suggested by the law of a higher justice. There is a sacrifice I should make, and I know what the offering is. This will be my only destination, regardless of the path I take. The offering dies, the sought one lives. There is no other way. Having said that, I remember that a warden might appoint the offerings himself, as long as the conditions are met. The offering, the rules dictate, should be appropriate. It should be proportionate. It should be linked closely to the one performing the sacrifice. Otherwise, what sacred power will the sacrifice bring forth? None whatsoever. So be it. I'm getting closer to the answer. Aspie tries to take care of me, and the foreman, he acts as if he's waiting for me to strangle him with his bare hands. I should return to him. So the bowels of the earth beneath the town are filled with the smallest arteries, transporting the sacred blood. The whole place is saturated with it. As far as I know, they could have been pouring blood into the earth for thousands of years. But why is the blood still hot? What keeps it alive? I should talk to Aglaya about it. That's all the way across town again. All the way across town again. Got some time though. I've got 4 hours potentially. Somewhat tempting to get busy. Nah. Let's not do that. It's just tempting to be like, I've got 4 hours before I actually have to reach her. Although I don't know how much quest there might secretly be. So I was thinking like of doing some raiding on the way there. It's like, no. Let's prioritize finishing the day's quest, then sleeping, and then once the day is fully secured and my recovery is secured, then I can do what I want with whatever time's left over. Hey, Gyorgo.
I feel almost nothing.
Yeah, that's why I don't like you. Thanks for summarizing that. I gave Senior Ogimsky over to the kin. Did I hear you right, Master Burrock? You bet. You are a clever man, Artemy Burrock, but regrettably short-sighted. Although, there's not many people who may boast percipience these days. I have no doubt that you did what your honor commanded you to. This is always worthy of sympathy. Sympathy? I thought it was worthy of respect. And you are correct. Good luck concluding your work, Master Burrock. I don't believe you mean it. That took a turn, and he wasn't a fan. I wouldn't describe Vlad the Heavy as a sentimental man. If he chose to die, he must have had a good reason to. Or could it be he thinks he deserves the punishment? I think there might have been a similar sentiment from The Bachelor when this came up, actually. It almost sounds familiar, like it's the same line or something, but I don't know. Creepy, massive megachurch. Hi.
There are so many crows in the sky.
So, you sent me on a runaround, and then the person who I was supposed to talk about the runaround sent me on another runaround, and then that person sent me on another runaround. So also I get inside the place so that the guy inside can give me the runaround to reveal that I was already being given the runaround since the beginning of the campaign. Yeah, it's a lot of work to ask a question and not be able to use the answer. Whew. By the way, now that I've had the perspective of the tabletop game to draw from in addition to it, like in the tabletop game, the core mechanic is that the three healers try to get evidence so they can implement their solution to win the game. That's the resource you get. Your victory points in that game is called evidence. I find it interesting to see how that's manifested in the original game too, here, where that map, that drawing of the city changes massively apparently from campaign to campaign based on the evidence that character's drawing. That's a difference. I'm happy to see you here. Still, it would be better for you not to come here too often. I've been to the abattoir. The things I've found there are hard to explain to an unprepared person. I am well prepared, though. I know your people's mythology. I know the legends of these lands. Tell me what you've learned there. Tell me where the blood came from. I will believe the most mind-boggling report, especially if it's consistent with my own data and calculations. There's a whole system of underground tunnels beneath the town, up the Gorkhorn River. Sacrificial blood has been poured down there for hundreds of years. No surprise there. I've read about it when I was preparing for the trip. Furthermore, I know for sure that other peoples have similar cults. They all belong to different ethnic groups. Some of them are northerners. The blood there is alive. That means the town nourishes it, and it probably nourishes the town. That's inexplicable, but it's a fact. Well, is it consistent with your data and calculations? Well, I'll be. It is consistent with the calculations. As for the data, well, it also is. This is why digging wells is prohibited around here. This is why the rivers are so shallow and the Gorkhorn is so clean. Yes, I'm impressed but not shocked. I was prepared to encounter something unique, even though I expected the mundane. What were you expecting? Something way less exciting. I thought the foreman was hiding an aurochs somewhere. A wounded one, perhaps. They could have drawn some of its blood for you. One aurochs would allow us to produce a few thousand portions at least. Enough for the remaining people. I've heard they're gigantic. Almost comparable to brontosauri. Jesus. They think... Wait, an auroch is a bull the size of a brontosaurus? Jesus. That'd be hard to hide. To what? Wait a moment. This may be a rather fascinating natural phenomenon, but you should look at it from a different angle. If there is blood circulating in the town, feeding it, then it's alive. This is your sought one. It all clicks, doesn't it? At least the size is fitting. What does Urdug mean? A body that contains the world. I am simply interpreting Isidore's words. Here, I've written it down. He knew that said Urdug was in danger. He knew that only a miracle could save its life. He knew that in order to cure it, one would require rivers of panacea. And so he decided to replace the foreman and regain legitimate control over the kin to get closer to the Urdug's bowels. You are correct. Yes, it's true. Well, I have a different point of view. but I think I'm reconstructing Isidore's thought process more or less correctly. The sign refers to some unnamed entity. It was silly of him to include this super being in his list of among ordinary patients. It must have been boggling his mind too. Yes. That's my father, all right. If I try to put myself in his shoes and look at all this through his eyes, it's exactly what must have happened.
We weren't given too much.
That's how the quest ends? That's abrupt. Alright. My search has come to an end. The answer is in Udur, the body that contains the world, a living creature that my father vowed to protect. The settlement nurtured by animal husbandry. One thing seems dubious, though. What kind of sacrifice could possibly be proportionate to such sought one? Oh, a sacrifice that's significant enough for the gods. It's the polyhedron. That's the sacrifice. I was wondering, like, is the polyhedron made of material that you can make medicine out of? Like, why does he ask for it to be destroyed at the end of the Bachelor campaign? No. He wants to sacrifice it for this. The sacrifice should be enough to get what he wants. Apparently. The rules of this universe are bizarre, and every time more of it gets explained, I only feel less understanding of a lot of it. It's some oddness. It reminds me of, it actually reminds me of Dark Souls storytelling to some extent, where it just, the more I learn about it, the more I'm just like, okay. Specifically when people talk about more abstract concepts in Dark Souls, like the dark, and the furtive pygmy, and the soul of man, and linking the fire, and like the really odd elements of the narrative, not the really easy to understand parts, like, oh, this knight tragically tried to do this thing, but then bad happened, and now he's dead, or now he's given into madness, or all the personal stories. I'm like, okay, cool. And I like that part of the narrative more, but that's not a surprise, because every time we talk about story, I always reinforce to you guys that I have a preference for character-driven narratives, and so all the individual narratives of Dark Souls about what happens to individual people, I find more compelling. And similar stuff happens in this game when, like, I care more about what's happening to individual people and how they're coping with this world and their situation. I find that more interesting than the story of, the city, like, what the plague is and how it works and the bizarre histories and, cultures the people have. Partly because that stuff's really hard to follow, no matter how much they talk about it. But it's also, like, so distant and large, whereas the individual stories, like how Aspity withheld my inheritance because she was trying to protect me, those kinds of things are much more interesting. Why I always cared about the party members of Mass Effect more than the Reapers of Mass Effect. And yeah, the previous topic of being a bigger fan of the characters of Dark Souls than the overall narrative of Dark Souls. Like, Dark Souls is one of my favorite franchises ever, and I cannot stress enough how I just do not care about its story. And by its story, I mean the story of each individual game, overarching. Weirdly enough, 3 might be the one that comes closest, but it comes and goes game to game, but it's just the characters that are most compelling. And what's rough about those games is, of course, the fact that if you play them without a guide and without tons of experience and so on, there's a very real risk that you'll miss out on every single character's story because you'll immediately screw up every single one of their quest lines, which makes you miss out on the only part of the narrative that I care about in Dark Souls. Everything else is just vague Eastern mythology stuff about cycles, and like, it's not even my culture, but I already feel like I've experienced it in so many iterations that I'm kind of just numb to that story about a Japanese narrative, be it a show or a game or a movie that just talks about cycles and history repeating itself and so on as a core to its narrative. Just kind of wears me down. Alright. We've done it. We've completed another day. Let's double check the asterisks. 1, 2, 3. Yeah! Day 8 in the bag. 3 more real... 9, 10, 11? Yeah, 3 more real days. And then day 12 we now know, assuming it's always the same, is just a talk to everyone day. It's not exactly short, it's just I don't really have to do much besides spend however many cures I have. Which we gotta get on that, by the way. I'm a little worried about that. No, it's not that big of a deal, is it? I was worried, like, that maybe the Bachelor had way more cures by now. But no, the primary thing that the Bachelor used to cure people was the panacea. And this is the day before the military shows up. That means that this is the day... Since it's the day before the military shows up, that means that it's the day, that the Bachelor got beat up and everything and so on. I think that means the panacea wasn't circulating yet. I think it only circulated in those in the next 2 days, I guess. So that, wow. So I got a lot of those very quickly. We'll see if I can match that or do better. I don't know what the rules are going to be for how many Artemy can make. We'll find out.